Okay, now we are going to start the next part. So that is the discussion that we are continuing from one of the interesting books written by Most Venerable Katukurunde Nyananda Mahathero, and that is called as Concept and Reality in Early Buddhist Thought. And now I think we are in page 15.
Yes.
Probably someone you can start with page 15, the English part.
Yes. Yes, Bhante. The little description, so subtle, brethren, right? From that point onwards.
Yeah, that's
problem.
right.
Correct,
Bhante,
yes. Yeah. Let me share the screen and start.
Correct.
Hope, Bhante, you can see the screen.
Correct, yes.
So subtle, brethren, is the bondage of Vepajete, but more subtle is the bondage of Mara. He who imagines, brethren, is bound by Mara. He who does not imagine is freed from the evil one. I am. This is an imagining. This am I. That is an imagining. I shall be. That is an imagining. I shall not be. Embodied shall I be. Formless shall I be. I shall be conscious. Unconscious shall I be. Neither conscious nor unconscious shall I be. The imagining, brethren, is a disease. Imagining is an abscess, a barb. Wherefore, brethren, ye must say, we must, with mind free from imaginings will be abide, thus must ye train yourselves. I am, brethren, is an agitation. This am I. These, brethren, are agitations. Wherefore, brethren, ye must say, with mind free from agitation will we abide, thus must ye train yourselves. I am, brethren, is a palpitation. This am I. These, brethren, are palpitations. Wherefore, brethren, ye must say, with mind free from palpitations will we abide, thus must ye train yourselves. I am, brethren, is a conceptual proliferation. This am I. These, brethren, are proliferations. Wherefore, brethren, ye must say, with mind free from proliferations will we abide, thus must ye train yourselves. I am, brethren, is a conceit. This am I. These, brethren, are conceits. Wherefore, brethren, ye must say, with mind free from conceit will we abide, thus must ye train yourselves. It will be seen that each of the 9 propositions given above is qualified by 5 adjectives. Mannitam, Injitam, Panditam, Papanchitam, and Managatam. These latter may be examined in the light of what we have already stated regarding the question of aspects in Buddhist philosophy.
Psychology.
Manyita, man, to think, points to the thought activity or imagination which gives rise to those propositions. Injita, inj, to move, reminiscent of the term eja, which is a synonym for tanha, probably refers to the emotional appeal of the propositions. Panditam, spanned, to throb, to palpitate, weaves them as characterized by the restless mental activity. Managatam, ma, to measure, traces their origin to the measuring and judging tendency inherent in conceptual activity, which is itself a constant process of value judgment. Papanchitam, prapanch, to spread out, to expand, may likewise imply the prolific tendency in conceptualization which gave rise to those propositions. The proposition asmi, I am. The foremost papanchita and the Madhupendika Sutta has already shown us why it is to be reckoned a product of prapancha. The other propositions portray perhaps more clearly The prolificity in the realm of ideation, the individuating, generalizing, particularizing, and dynamizing tendencies which provide the scaffolding for theoretical superstructures. The particular context in which prapanchita occurs in this sutta thus lends color to the assumption that prapancha signifies the inveterate tendency towards proliferation in the realm of ideation.
Yeah, okay. So now actually we have come to a fairly summary of the whole thing. Let me share a small diagram so that you can recognize something more. So this diagram actually show what someone has stated basically in some pictorial way. So there are 5 adjectives. Manjana, conceiving, then pandana, or rather injana, that is the agitation, then pandana, palpitation, then prapancha, proliferation, managata, the conceit. So these are the 5 possibilities or 5 adjectives which in this sutta, Yavakalapi Sutta, Buddha in a way kind of summarize. So these are in a way we can recognize how mind is working. So internally mind is going through these kinds of inherent type of diseases. So there's a tendency to conceive. There's a tendency to get agitated. There's a tendency to go through a kind of a palpitation, kind of a vibration. And then the conceptual proliferation, kind of manifoldness. And then the conceit. Now if we take conceiving, so now in this sutta actually there are 9 examples are given. I am this, I shall be, I shall not be, I shall consist of form, I shall be formless, I shall be percipient, I shall be non-percipient, I shall be neither percipient nor non-percipient. So likewise there may be many things, but this seems to be the most root or more fundamental kind of conceiving. And on top of them or based upon them, there could be very complex combinations as well. Now, say for example, when one starts with I am, so it does not continuously go through I am, but it can land upon the other combinations, other propositions. And it can even get into the agitation, it can get into the palpitation, it can get into the proliferation, it can get into the conceit. So what we can see is a very complex matrix here. So this is how our untrained mind is fairly being influenced by these propositions and by these kinds of inherent thought formations. So there are different possibilities how thoughts are constructed, how thoughts are formed. So there are 5 possibilities here Buddha has mentioned. Manjana is imagining. Then injita is another possibility. How tanha, the craving, is promoting mind to think. And then palpitation, kind of agitation going on, a kind of a movement going on. Then that also makes the mind has this restless nature, inherent restlessness. Sometimes we call as the uddacha, as a hindrance. So that itself promotes thinking. And then proliferation. So this is the main theme of this whole book. So the conceptual proliferation. So when mind gets some kind of a datum, some kind of a data, so it starts prolific, kind of going through a prolific analysis or prolific, expanding it. So that nature is there in the mind. That also promotes thinking. And then again, we continuously do measurements. I am here, you are there. So we two are 2 individuals. So I am better than you. I am worse than you. I am equal to you. So likewise, we do continuous measurements. Either when we are recognizing various objects, again, we can see this measuring going on. This is good. This is bad. This is say white. This is red. So likewise, we distinctly recognize so many individual objects. And when we recognize so many individual objects, then naturally there's a comparison happens. So that comparison promotes thinking. Now, let us discuss today about the very first one, that is the Manjana. So Manjana is actually a very interesting term that Buddha has highlighted, and Manjana. Now, if I show you how a typical worldling is kind of recognize objects. So actually we discussed this, I think last week or previous week, that how a person, after seeing an object, how he perceive it. Now this is explained in the Mulapariyaya Sutta. This is an ordinary person. So he perceives earth as earth. Now that means, say for example, you see your house. There you recognize, oh, this is my house. So you immediately have a relationship. So it has become your house. And probably now you are in your house. Probably you can say, oh, I'm at home. I'm in the house now. Probably assume that you have a kind of a loan taken from the mortgage bank or something in order to rebuild the house. So probably they also have some amount of connection to your house. So you may have certain doubts about it, whether you are able to pay the mortgage, pay the rent, something. And there may be a kind of further thought generation happen, whether they are going to take the house from you or whether they are going to take away from you, going to give it to someone else. Are you going to lose your house? So am I going to take it back? How am I going to take it back? How am I going to possess it? Likewise, when we see a kind of a house, so definitely, so we immediately recognize, oh, this is house. So this is the typical traditional or conventional name that we have given. So immediately we recognize, oh, this is my house. Now here I have given an example, a chair. So we see a chair. Oh, this is a beautiful chair. This is a chair. This is an arms chair. Oh, a simple chair. Whatever way. So you do the recognition. And after you do that recognition, then you are the one seeing it. So I am the one seeing it. This is my chair. So I is also coming to the picture. So there's a person coming to the picture. So the object is also there. So this house belongs to me. So I exist. So I am the owner. So I also being very much strengthened. So how our mind works in a way, actually all our belongings promotes a kind of an ego. So that's why we always want to possess many things. We have many things. So when we see those, all our belongings, all our wealth, it promotes a self. It promotes our ego. So I am the owner. So I am the boss. So all others are my subjects. Or all others are my, say, subordinates. My classmates, my colleagues. So I am the boss. I am the monitor. I am the great. I am the leader. So that boosts the ego. So it's possible for us to think further when we have such kind of a mentality. So when I am here and my belongings are there, so there's an interrelationship for me to think. So the thinking is now going on, imagining is going on. So therefore in this Mulapariyaya Sutta, Buddha mentioned, so he simply perceives earth as earth. Pataving patavito sanjanati. And then once it is recognized like that, pataving patavito sanyatta pataving manyati. Now the term that we are talking today is there, manyati. So he started thinking about it. And he recognized, oh, this is house. And after he recognized this as my house, so then it promotes kind of a thinking in the mind. As I mentioned, whether my house is beautiful, whether it is good, or whether I need to renovate it, or whether I would be able to pay off the mortgage. So there are various things associating the house. So all that imaginings, all that thoughts may come into the mind. So you start thinking. Pataving manyati. And now there are different ways how we can do this thinking. So he conceives himself in earth, conceives himself apart from earth, he conceives earth to be mine, and he has a kind of a delight when he is thinking. So this is the typical way that a person is thinking, imagining, and sometimes we can call it as conceiving. So there's a center is the I, the ego. So based on that I, so now I have imaginations, now I have conceiving. Now, this is how typically we works. Now you can recognize how we are thinking. So internally I have this person appearing, I am myself, and I have my belongings. And as a result of that, so I can think. And that is why some actually in this book mentioned the Descartes. So he has mentioned. So there are things, so there are the thoughts, so I am here. So thoughts are there, so I am, therefore I am. So thoughts are also, we belong, and that is how we think. And those my thoughts are there, so then I am also there. So we belong the thoughts also. We have a kind of a wrong misunderstanding that thoughts belong to me. So when thoughts are there, so that indicates I am living. I am also there. So likewise, we can see the ego, the presence of I is fairly now become concrete, become established. Now, an interesting thing is the practice actually help us to challenge this. Now, say for example, you are practicing walking meditation. So while you are practicing walking meditation, so you are not supposed to think. What you are supposed to do is to pay close attention to your experience. So what you are experiencing? Your foot is touching the ground and there's a hardness. Your foot is touching the ground, there may be softness. There may be stiffness, maybe a little bit of wet or dry or hot, cold, or there may be subtle vibrations, there may be movements. So this is what we perceive, or this is what we experience. So we are now carefully trying to recognize all that subtle experiences. So that is our main objective. That is our prominence actually. I am not thinking about it. Rather, I can directly experience it. So that is why it is very, very important to give prominence to this direct experience. In order to recognize or know this direct experience, we don't need think. We don't need to imagine. We don't need thinking. So as we continue our practice, slowly, mind calms down and inner chatter fairly stops. And all our other imaginations stop, all our conceiving stop, and we start recognizing each and every step, each and every sensation, maybe hardness, maybe softness, maybe smoothness, maybe heaviness, maybe lightness, hot, cold, all that. So these are the very fundamental experience, bodily experiences. Now we are fairly investigating them. So during that period of time, I couldn't create I couldn't create ego. So because I am fully involved with this experience, so that experience is completely free from ego, completely free from I making. So I forgot to make an I. So it is not an existing, lasting I, but it is a mind-made I, imagined I. So I forgot to do that because I have no time, because there's a assigned task to the mind. So mind couldn't go through that imagination, I-making, mind-making. It can't do because there are ongoing bodily experiences. I have to carefully recognize them, observe them, or investigate them, how they are changing, how they are behaving, how they are rising, passing away. So there's a very subtle process going on. So I need to carefully investigate that. So during this whole time, no I, no ego. So now slowly you open your eyes and see where am I? So this I making and mind making has basically stopped temporarily for a time. So now the practice has opened your eye to a certain extent that you recognize, okay, it is possible to have this kind of an experience. I didn't feel any kind of selfish, egocentric thoughts. Rather, there's a very pure kind of an experience. So I can simply experience that. So as we continue our practice, there we can further understand the true nature of these phenomena. Say you are practicing Kayanupassana, so you are recognizing or understanding the body in many different directions. And you are understanding its constituent parts. You are understanding its elements, how it is made up with. So how they are changing, how they are behaving, how vulnerable they are. And so you are developing a very thorough understanding about the true nature of the body. It can't be yours anymore. It may be belong to the nature. It has its own causes and conditions, and to which I have no much control. So now you slowly make a kind of a dispassion towards these bodily processes, towards these physical components or physical objects. So the matter, the body, the physical objects, all now the rupa khanda, the form aggregate, and there is no grasping now. The grasping is one very important, very crucial prerequisite for I to happen, for ego to happen, for egocentric thoughts to happen. When the grasping becomes loosened or grasping become weakened, this I-making, mind-making become less and less. So ultimately assume that you are able to achieve a temporary release. Temporary release. So that means your mind completely stop grasping only for a short moment. So during that time, you can see there is no I, there is no person, there is no being, myself, because the very essential prerequisite, grasping, is not there. So that is a one theory that Venerable Punnamanthaniputta teaches to Venerable Ananda. Upadayatiko ausu Ananda asmiti hoti no anupadaya. Ananda, if you have to make a self, a sense of I, then it is must to have a upadana. It is must to have a grasping. So if you don't have any kind of a grasping, so then there is no I. You can't create an I. You can't create a sense of I. So the practice, the Satipatthana practice, help us to achieve this by, the dissolving this bondage, kind of having a kind of a disintegration, making a kind of a separation. How the experiencer and the experience become separated. Now there is no experiencer and there is no object to experience, but kind of an experiencing process is there. Now here actually in the typical worlding, there is an object and the subject. So I am here, object is here. So this is the typical understanding. But as we move forward, once our practice is basically developed, so there is a ongoing process, and object is also very much like not created in the mind. So that is how one is developing himself. So time to time, likewise, this imaginations are stopped, inner chatter is stopped, conceiving stopped, and you are in a very light mind. You are in a very relaxed mind, non-grasping mind, unassociated mind. There is nothing to grasp, nothing to hold. Mind is very clear. And you feel more lighter. You feel your presence. But no I. But again, mind go and grasp. That is because of our inner tendencies, latent tendencies, and because of our influxes. Again, mind go and grasp. So then again, we need to practice. We need to again remind ourselves, okay, you have seen that the true reality, but again, now see again, you go and grasp. So behave yourself, restrain yourself. Don't do that again. So don't allow mind to go and grasp. Don't do that foolish thing again, because you have seen it. You have seen the true reality. So sometimes you have experienced that even, but now again you see the mind go and grasp. Again, eye making has happened. So you do a kind of an ongoing monitoring, and time to time when grasping happens, so the insights have to come forward and to release you. So this is the process of the training. So in the Mulapariyaya Sutta, Buddha explains about a person who is in a higher training. So he already experienced this non-grasping state in a more lucid manner. And he thoroughly understood that it is possible. And but still mind continues to do the grasping because of the early habits, old habits. But he's warning himself, advising himself, instructing himself, please don't do it. Release the mind. Don't go ahead with this grasping. Don't think too much. Don't start I-centered thinking or egocentric thinking. Don't go for imaginations. Don't go for conceiving. So this is the kind of a training that he has to go through, particularly about the manjana. That's why the term have changed here. Pataviya ma manyi. Now he is instructing himself, don't do manjana, don't do conceiving, don't do imaginations. But mind is started that, so he has noticed that, but he is trying to behave himself. He is trying to restrain himself, not allowing the mind to continue that, but remembering that he's understanding. There are insights, he experienced that some time ago maybe. So he take it to the front and using it to prevent his mind from this manjana, from this conceiving process, from this imagination process. So this is something that we all have to practice. So because we can't immediately stop manjana, we can't completely stop immediately the conceiving process. So it's a kind of a habitual tendency we all have. So in a way, we have to restrain ourselves in order to do that. And there are various other areas where we can further recognize. So another interesting thing I like to share with you is another sutta called Kalakarama Sutta. So probably you are familiar with this also because Most Venerable Katukurunda Nyananda Thero has written a book based on this Kalakarama Sutta. That is a very, very popular book, famous book called Magic of the Mind. So the theme is this Kalakarama Sutta. So there again, Buddha mentioned about this manjana. So there he explains about his behavior. So what is his behavior? That means Tathagata's behavior, Arahant's behavior. Itiko bhikkave Tathagato datta dattabbang dittang na manyati. Tang na manyati. Adittang na manyati. Dattabbang na manyati. Dattarang na manyati. Now this is an extremely important statement by the Buddha. Actually the emptiness is very thoroughly emphasized here. So the idea is Tathagato datta dattabbang dittanna manyati. Now say he has seen something, but for him only the seeing is there, but there is no something. And dittanna manyati. And then adittanna manyati. And he don't have any kind of a conceiving or imagination thinking that I haven't seen. And then dattabbang na manyati. He have no conceiving or imagination thinking that I should see it. There is no such a compulsory statement coming from the mind. I should see it. There is no manjana. There is no conceiving, imagination thinking like that. And again, the very interesting part is the last one, dattarang na manyati. That means I am the one seeing. So such is also not there. Generation of the seer is SEER. So I am the one who is seeing. So there is no such thing either. So there is no seer, there is no observer. But the observing process, seeing process is there. That's all. There is no observer. There is no experiencer. There is no seer. So here you can see, with respect to I, Buddha very carefully, I in the sense EYE, the I faculty, Buddha very beautifully mentioned, so there is seeing, by the way. The seeing is there, but there is no something that you see. And then thinking that there is something I have seen, we can create a lot of thoughts, we can do a lot of imaginations, but that is not available with the Tathagata, with the Arahant. And then Buddha mentioned adittang na manyati. Assume that you have misseen that. Say yesterday there was a teledrama, but due to some reason you couldn't see it. So now you may have a lot of thoughts, imagination, thinking that, oh my goodness, I couldn't see that. I forgot it totally. I couldn't see that. Now you are imagining because you couldn't see it, not seeing it. There are thoughts, but for Buddha, for the Arahants, there is no something that either. And that tabbang na manyati. And there is no any importance given to this seeing process, thinking that all this has to be seen. I must see that. There is no something like that. So there is no something telling you, okay, I should see that. I must see that. There is no something like that. So as a result of that, there are no imaginations. And the interesting part, as I mentioned, is the person. So during the seeing process, am I creating a person who is observing, who is experiencing, who is seeing? So there is no such person also created. So there's a seeing going on, but based upon what you see, or based upon this whole experience, seeing process, you are not making an I. You are not making an ego. So similarly, Buddha explains about the other faculties. That means to the ear, sutta sotabbang, sutang na manyati, and asutang na manyati, sotabbang na manyati, sotarang na manyati. So that means there may be a song, but for the Arahant, it is a mere sound maybe. Maybe he can conventionally recognize it as a song, but he hasn't given a huge emphasis to that so that his mind thinks about it. So such thoughts are not generated based upon that song. For him, it is no more a song. It is a kind of a, we can say, a hearing or listening has happened. But thinking it is a song, a beautiful song, my song or his song, my old song, my favorite song. So he is not generating thoughts anymore. And again, if he couldn't hear it, still he don't generate any thoughts based upon that. Again, there is no any kind of a statement telling I should hear that song. I should listen to that song. There is no such kind of a emphasis onto that process. And again, there is no I who is listening. There's a kind of a hearing process is going on, listening process is going on, that's all. But there is no listener. So similarly, Buddha explains about the nose, about the tongue and the body, how these faculties are interacting with their corresponding objects, nose with various smells, tongue with the taste, body with the tangibles. But apart from that experience, that activity, there is no person who is experiencing. There is no something that we are experiencing. And he does not do any kind of imaginations or conceiving based upon not experiencing that. And again, thinking that I should experience that. And again, about the thoughts happening in the mind. So there also Buddha mentioned, Vinyatva vinyatabbang vinyanang nenam vinyatang ne manyati. Avinyatang ne manyati, vinyatabbang ne manyati, vinyatarang ne manyati. Accordingly, I mean, you all can recognize that. So there may be thoughts, there may be knowing parts when we are cognizing various things. But the cognizing, the process is there, but there is no something that you cognize. And again, there is no cognizer who is cognizing. And there is no should statement telling I should cognize. And again, you are not imagining or conceiving, telling that I haven't cognized. So likewise, Buddha very beautifully explained in this, what we call Kalakarama Sutta, how these things are quite empty. And actually, this understanding helps us to stop conceiving. So that's the other beautiful thing. So more we understand all these true realities, thoroughly we understand the true realities through our practice, then we start, maintaining a kind of dispassionate attitude towards these. We are not giving much importance. We understood their hollow nature, the empty nature. So then the mind remains calm, relaxed, not being bothered by all these, maintaining its happiness, calmness, relaxed experience. So that is how, in a way, using the practice, one can minimize at least the conceiving process. At least he can minimize imagining process. And mind remains calm, quiet, free from inner chatter. So these are the things actually we need to learn through this beautiful sutta. And as the Katakuruna in this Yavakalapi Sutta it is mentioned, so Manyitam Bhikkave Baddho Marassa. Amanyamano Mutto Papimato. So the more we do the imaginations, more we do conceiving, more we do thinking, so we are bound by the Mara. But Amanyamano Mutto Papimato. So if we are able to free from Manyana, keep the mind free from any kind of Manyana, keep the mind free from any imaginations, conceiving, so at least to that level, so we can say the mind is free from Mara. The mind is free from Mara's bondage. It's so crucial. So that is what the lesson that we can learn from this, and we'll go through the other ones maybe next week, one after the other, because these what we call adjectives, Manyana, Injita, Pandita, Papanchita, Managata. So these things are very, very important. And now we'll get into the Dhamma discussion. And if you have any questions related to today's discussion, this concept and related discussion, or if you want to discuss about your meditation, now we can take the time.
Avasarai Bhante.
Right.
We have 5 questions today.
Right.
Question number 1 of 5. This is on walking, mindful walking. Dear Bhante, I try to be mindful when I walk during the day-to-day activities similar to the mindful walking practice. This can be specifically done during fast walking or slow running as an exercise routine, which I allocate time every day. I tried this mindful exercise during the past several months and want to clarify one difference than in the normal practice. During exercise walking or running, I find it is easier to focus on the breath initially and establish mindfulness as systematic breathing is important to the exercise. For the first 10 to 15 minutes, I focus on the breath, inhaling and exhaling, observing end-to-end breaths and the observation around it. Once settled, I can move attention to the legs and soles, which are working more quickly and rigorously than the walking practice. I want to check with Bhante if this is okay, to start from the breath and switch to walking, and any adjustments I should be working on in my technique. With metta, that's the end of the question.
I think it's okay because you are mindfully maintaining your attention to the breathing process. So as you mentioned that you have to do a little bit of manipulation there, you need to control it for the exercise. But the thing is, you should do mindful sitting where you are learning how the breathing process happens naturally. So you give that opportunity for the body without your interaction or without your manipulation, without your control, how the body goes through the natural breathing process. So that is very, very important. So that is where the mind settles. Because during the exercise process, since you are doing it purposely, so the mind does not settle, but fairly being with that object. That's all right. But the important thing in the Anapanasati, the natural process, is that as a result of the being mindful, so this breathing process becomes subtler and subtler. So it's more challenging. So more challenges are there. That is important. And And when breathing calms down, breathing relaxes. So there also we need to maintain vigilance. We can't sleep. We can't slip our attention. Rather, we need to maintain our attention continuously with the breathing, even when it becomes subtler. So this whole evolution actually happens when you allow the body to naturally breathe. That is also we need to understand.
Question number 2 of 5 is from the Dhamma Sermon. Dear Bhante, what is the connection between Prapancha and the Eightfold Noble Path? Much merits if Bhante can help us to link eradication of the Prapancha and the steps of Noble Path with Metta. I think we took that question before. Is that a question we explained before, I think?
Actually, we explained about the Mula Pariyaya Sutta. Now, Noble Eightfold Path is the way to overcome Prapancha. So basically, when one practices Noble Eightfold Path, that means one is trying to eradicate all the proliferations. That's why the Arahant is the full accomplished one who has accomplished the Noble Eightfold Path, who has fulfilled the Noble Eightfold Path, and again he is completed or he is completely free from the Prapancha. He is Nipapancha. So the relationship is that. So the more you have developed the Noble Eightfold Path, lesser will be the conceptual proliferation.
Question number 3 of 5 is a general question. Dear Bhante, could you please explain if meditation is required to attain Sotapatti state with Metta? That's the end of the question.
So typical understanding is yes, we need, because nowadays, our minds are completely distracted. Our minds are in a way scattered and confused, and there is no any peacefulness in the mind, and filled with a lot of lust, hatred, delusion, and all these kind of defilements. So when the mind is under the influence of all that defilement, so you can't see the things as they truly are. So seeing things as they truly are is one essential part of the practice. And once you see that, once you know that, only we can say, okay, I have some thorough understanding about the form aggregate, about the feelings aggregate, about the formations, perceptions, the consciousness, different kinds of aggregate. That help us to understand the dukkha satya, the noble truth of suffering. So knowing about this 5 convening aggregates. And when you are practicing like that, so you are getting to the Noble Eightfold Path. So that is the fourth satya. So that is where the term Sotapanna. The term Sotapanna has derived that you arrive the path. So this arriving of the path. So what is this path? That is the Noble Eightfold Path. So you need to first understand the first noble truth. And as a result of that, you are abandoning the second noble truth, the tanha, the craving you need to abandon. And as a result of that, you are experiencing non-suffering or cessation of suffering, abandonment of the craving. Where you are staying now is the nirodha. That means the nibbana, maybe a temporary one. So this whole path is the Noble Eightfold Path. So you thoroughly understand that, you arrive that one arrives that path, one recognizes its importance, its practical usage. So then it is mentioned that one has become a Sotapanna. So he has arrived, he practically understands its, pragmatic value of the Noble Eightfold Path. So therefore Satipatthana also divided into 3 stages. First, you are establishing mindfulness, what we call as the Satipatthana. Second is you are trying to understand the phenomena, trying to understand their behavior, their true nature, developing the insights. So that is the Satipatthana Bhavana. The third part is what we call as the Satipatthana Bhavana Gaminincha Patipada. So as a result of your previous practice, now you arrive the path. Now only you understood, oh, this is what I need to do. Now only you have your confidence happening within yourself. It is not that someone is guiding you anymore or someone is always teaching you. Rather, you yourself has fair amount of confidence now. Your own practice has developed fair amount of confidence, and you are now sure of what to do. That is why when one becomes a Sotapanna stream winner, is mentioned. So even without someone else's help, he can achieve the complete liberation. But if there is a further good guidance happens, then that process may be expedited. But even without such help, one may be achieved the full liberation within at most 7 lifespans. Lifespans, yes.
Question number 4 of 7. This is a Dhammasaman question. Bhante, today the book introduced 4 more underlying complexities of mind, apart from the deep subject we got introduced recently. To explain conceptual proliferation, how do we simply relate these 5, imagine, agitation, palpitation, proliferation and conceit, to something we already know? Can we categorize all these under keles, or anusaya, or ashrava? With metta, that's the end of the question.
Yeah, actually, that is what I am trying to do, explain one by one. So today we have given fair amount of explanation about the manjana, how conceiving happens, how I-centered thinking happens, imaginations happen. And it can end up with conceptual proliferation. So these are, actually don't think that when the mind starts thinking, it will only go through in one line. It can end up, building relationships among them. It's a very complicated process. So Buddha, actually, for us to understand, is explaining this. Okay, see this, there are 5 possibilities available. So these are the thought formations. These are the genesis of the thoughts. But when they are formed like that, when they are generated like that, there are other contributing factors, influences that also come into the picture and complicates the whole process. That's why the thinking process is quite complicated. So here, Buddhist psychology is telling us how the thought formations can happen due to various reasons. And say as an example, I have taken the house example. Say you have seen the house and you immediately recognize, oh, this is my house. So that itself is a imagination. And when you recognize that, then maybe the craving now there, because it is my house, craving is there. Now craving actually belongs to the second, that the injita, the aja, where the Katakurunda Thero has given it as agitation. So now there's a kind of a movement going on in the mind, whether someone is stealing my house, someone is going to get my house, steal my house, because a lot of injita can happen, the agitation can happen, because now you have the craving. And there maybe you start comparing your house with someone else's house. That is because of the managata, the conceit. That also generates further thinking. So these are actually contributing more and more towards thinking. So all are fairly related and fairly interconnected and contributing to each other and make the mind more confused. So we'll go one by one, taking each attribute, each adjective per week, so that we can pay thorough attention to each one.
Question number 5 of 7. Dear Bhante, the temporary release highlighted today, is it the experience one gets when entering stream enterer path? With metta. That's the end of the question.
Yeah, very interesting question. Actually, I really love that the way that you are putting the questions, because you are asking to the point and very, very important point. So that is also something we need to experience, that the temporary release may not be the perfect release. So even though you feel like released, it's a relatively you are released. Say for example, you are running. and someone is asking you, why are you running? You can simply walk. So while walking, you feel more released, more relaxed compared to walking. Compared to running. So while you are walking, you may feel more relaxed, more comfortable compared to running, and now you feel comfortable. And then say someone is asking you, why are you walking? You can simply stand up. You can stay still. So you stop. Now no movement. So comfortable more compared to the walking part. Comfortable more compared to the running part. Now someone would suggest, oh, why don't you sit? Now you are sitting. And once you sit, you feel more comfortable, more relaxed, more calm, more quiet, more comfortable. So likewise, so this purification process happen step by step, gradually. So we can't say when we feel as release, it is the perfect release that we have achieved. So we have to maintain that release state for a while. So then if there are any residuals, if there are any subtle graspings available, still operating in the mind, so those also have to be abandoned. So those also have to be purified. If we are able to purify perfectly, particularly about that eye-making, what we call as the Sakkaya Ditthi Vicikicca Silabbata Paramasa, so the personality view, and having any kind of a doubt, and having a kind of a thought about the grasping of various rituals, and such kind of what we call as the fetters are, or the defilements are completely abandoned, then only it is said that one has arrived what we call as a stream winner. Therefore, it is difficult immediately for one to say that we have arrived stream winner, we have become a stream winner, unless we do a very honest reflection. So that's why in the suttas like Kosambya Sutta, Buddha is giving a very interesting criteria for us to verify whether we have achieved that. It's a very, very subtle criteria Buddha has mentioned in the Kosambya Sutta. Probably we can discuss it some other time. So what Buddha has mentioned there. So that is a wise reflection that we have to continuously go through, kind of an assessment that we have to do to our own mind. Then only we can say, probably one might have achieved it and one can further continue. So that is how we need to think about that or understand that.
Question number 6 of 7. This is again another Dhamma sermon. In the Kalakarama Sutta regarding emptiness, I thought in the experience of seeing there has to be an object to see, to have the seeing experience. Similarly, through the other 5 senses, I thought it is through the contact with an external object that we experience the world. So how can we say there is no object seen and it is empty? Have I misunderstood this, Bhante? Please, can you clarify? Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. That's the end of the question.
Yeah. So that is how the typical understanding that the object is there, the eye is there, then the chakku viññāna, the eye consciousness is there. So that is the typical operation that's going on. Rupa there and the eye is here, the chakku here. As the result of that combination of these two, the eye consciousness happens. But here Buddha's explanation is not with respect to that typical general experience, but rather the experience of an arahant. How an arahant, during his maybe arahantship, that arahanthood, or we can say that when he is thoroughly experiencing that, properly experiencing that, how he is going through. So there he does not have a footing in the mind. So eye consciousness is not strongly established. So for him, even though seeing is there, his mind is not particularly emphasized on the particular object. Now say for example, while during your walking meditation, once you grow to a fair extent, there may be various things that you can see, but you have no interest to particularly see that. But it is not that you haven't seen it either, but it is not making any space in your mind. It is not registering in your mind. It is not promoting any kind of thinking in your mind. It is not provoking thoughts in your mind. It is not making I in your mind. So, based upon something that you have seen, your mind is not getting agitated. That is why even to Bahir, Buddha mentioned, Ditte dittamattam bhavisati, sute sutamattam bhavisati, mute mutamattam bhavisati, vinyate vinyatamattam bhavisati. So, there is seen, but you are not making any self out of that. And when you are not making a self, but only the seen is there, but there is no something, an object that we have seen. So when that observer, experiencer is absent, you can't say that there is an object that you are observing either. So they are interrelated. So very, very interesting point actually we are talking. So this, we will go through this actually. If you can refer Manase Maya, the singular translation or the Magic of the Mind book by Most Venerable Katukuru Thero. So he actually highlights that beautifully, how Buddha emphasized that. So when I-making, mind-making is not there, or when the craving is not there, when lust, hatred, delusion is not there, so mind does not make any nimitta. Mind does not register, the object is not taking as an object. So we have to use certain terms to explain this. Seeing is there, but there is no anything that you see. It is not registering in your mind. It is not occupying in the mind. There is no object in your mind. There is no sanya in your mind. Sanya is abandoned. So this is actually the Nibbanic state that we are talking. An Arahant is experiencing. So that is the Nibbana, the state of Nibbana that Buddha is explaining, how an Arahant, full established Arahant, accomplished person is going through it. So don't compare that with the typical understanding about the typical sensory perception. But here Buddha is talking about the Arahant who has abandoned all the fetters, all the defilements. Defilements are the one making something based upon your interest, based upon your likes, dislikes. So you prepare something, you make something. So it's a mind-made something. Back to you, Chandra.
Yeah. Question number 7 of 7. This again on the Dhamma sermon. Venerable Sir, when we are not meditating and there is a self in action, should we make an effort to remind ourselves of the experience of the transient non-self state experienced during the meditation and force the mind to stop thinking or imagining? Much merits for your wonderful teachings. With metta, that's the end of the question.
Yeah, definitely. If that we can recall, we can remind, then at least we can stop conceptual proliferation. We can stop the unnecessary thinking, overthinking, obsessive thinking. So that is a must we need to do. Definitely.
So that's the end of the written questions, and I think we're just on time to finish the program. So we will end the program today. To end the program, I would first like to pass our merits and thank Bhante for his valuable time.
Yeah, Shamila, there is a hand raised by Hiranti, but I don't know whether it's possible. There's a heavy rain going on. Anyway, we can try 1 minute. Probably we can give her a chance.
Yeah. Okay, Bhante.
Just a small question, Bhante. When it is for Arahants, can't they remember what they have seen, what they have heard, if you ask them later?
Yeah, very interesting. So that's why Buddha mentioned. So they are using these conventional terminologies. They may say, okay, I have seen the Buddha, I have seen Venerable Sariputta. So that is a conventionally they are using those terminologies. But with thorough understanding, there is no substantial person there. So there is a very beautiful sutta called Arahanta Sutta. So there Buddha mentioned. So the Arahant even use the typical mundane terminologies. I have seen that. So these are typical terminologies he is also using. But thoroughly he know very well it is a mere convention. There is nothing substantial in this convention, but it is simply a mechanism or a communication technique one we are using to communicate among ourselves, to distinctly recognize things. But apart from that, there is nothing substantial into those conventions. Now, say for example, when I am telling I have come here by train. Say when we are telling that, so train is something that I am emphasizing. So train is the mechanism that I have used. But is the train truly exist? Or is it a name, a label that we have given? So that we can distinctly recognize among many other vehicles and other transporting techniques. So train is one mechanism available. So in order to properly recognize that, I am telling that name train. But that's a convention. So Arahant also, according to the Buddha, he is also using the terms, but he knows there is no, substantial, intrinsic thing called train. It's a combination of many, many components combined together. Ultimately, we have given the name as train. So he has that as a very thorough understanding in him, even though he uses the names, conventions, labels, but to that label or name or convention, he does not attribute any kind of a substantial entity.
Okay, so he remembers everything, what he's heard, what he's talked, everything other people talked, other people heard. And if any questions are asked, then he can remember in the, several years ago even. Is that right? That's what I mean.
Maybe we can say like that, because Buddha, he doesn't need to be an arahant to do that. So Buddha mentioned if one is developing mindfulness, so one may have a good, what we call memory capacity. So he can use the typical terms to explain his experience.
Okay. Thank you, Bhante. Theruvan Saranai. Thank you.
But the other thing is that Buddha in the, what we call, I think in the Madhupindika Sutta, where Buddha mentioned, so all that does not register in the mind in a more, lustful manner. Now, say, for example, when we are hearing a song, say we have heard several songs. So most appealing song may be stored in my mind because I have a special interest to that.
Yeah.
So why I have special interest to a particular song? That depends on my individual interest. That depends on how my lust, hatred, and delusion are combined together, working together. So that is how I give my preference. That it is not inherent to that song, but it's coming from myself. But when Arahant does not have that kind of lust, hatred, delusion,
okay.
then it is a kind of a sound. It may give a kind of a message, but apart from that, he may not give a particular emphasis, particular interest to that particular song as a result of his own lust, hatred, delusion, because there is no lust, hatred, delusion anymore available in him.
Okay. Yeah, that makes it clear, Bhante. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Actually, in the future, probably we'll take Manase Maya, the Magic of the Mind book also. It's a very, very interesting book. And that also gives us a fair emphasis on these areas, how our minds are operating, how we create persons, how we create objects, and all such of things.
Thank you, Thero San.
So we will end the program now. To end the program, I would first like to pass our merits and thank Bhante for his valuable time, even with the busy schedule at the monastery. To all the supporters of this program, both seen and unseen, and to the participants for joining today to practice and share their questions. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Theruvan Saranai.
Theruvan Saranai.
Theruvan Saranai.